From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Firewalking. That's what it's called. A little bit misleading, but how does firewalking work?
Firewalk with me.
Oh,
no?
boy.
Nobody?
Oh, boy. Lynch.
I had that playing while I was looking at some of this stuff.
Just imagining him like interrogating a small, I think a capuchin maybe, or another primate. Okay, continue.
I love his voice too, the Lynch voice. But
It's great.
But firewalking nowadays seems like a kind of isolated practice. It's not something a lot of people get together to do with their friends on the weekend all the time. We have this stereotype that squarely places it in India, right? But people have been doing this for thousands of years in places across the globe. The earliest documented reference does go back to India in 1200 BC, but you'll see people calling themselves firewalkers in Spain, Greece, Fiji, Polynesia, and there's nothing supernatural about it. There is zero supernatural stuff at play here. You can probably do it yourself, but don't. Legally, we are not telling you to do this. It's a bad idea. Don't go to the ER with your feet all messed up and say that Ben, Matt, and Noel told me this would be a cool thing to do, because we're not. We're just saying you're probably physically capable of doing it.
Yes. I would say don't do it unless you have production insurance, like the cast of The Office had.
I was thinking of the same thing. It's a very epic moment. Team building. It was team building.
That's right.
Probably not something that most offices would get approved as a team building exercise, but I like the gesture.
I couldn't even get a budget for us to play laser tag, which is ridiculous. But should I watch The Office while we're here? I haven't seen the US version.
Yes.
That is wild.
Yes, you should. And the second season of Community. Oh my goodness. And
I have seen The Office all the way through probably 9 times. It's like my comfort food show. I just put it on when I want to feel okay.
So let's talk about what firewalking actually is, or what it generally refers to. There's usually a nice long bed of coals, really hot coals, stuff that'll burn you for sure. Let's say it's about 10 feet long. Then on one end, you've got human beings, actual human beings with no shoes, no foot coverings whatsoever, lined up ready to just walk across it. And guess what happens? They do. In the instance of some of the mystics we're talking about, a lot of times it will be an individual person that is taking a walk across the coals and then maybe waiting for a moment and taking a walk back across the coals. And it really is just science. It's something that science can pretty quickly answer, sadly.
I don't know if it's sad. It's pretty, I find it inspiring.
It was mystic, man. It was incredible. It was mind-blowing, at least for me. I remember it. But now...
Remember when there was magic in the world, guys?
There still is.
And then science came along.
It just has nothing to do with coals on the ground.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's true, because, you don't see... There's a lot of work that goes into making one of these scenarios, like when you hire the company to make your coal pit for your team building exercise. They show up well in advance of the actual exercise, and they got to dig a trench first, then they got to lay out the coals, they got to light them, and you probably would notice that these coals aren't like flaming hot. You're not shooting like, an accelerant on them. They're not shooting flames out left and right. They're basically embers. They've been allowed to burn down to the point that they're not actually actively on fire anymore.
Yeah, but embers are hot.
Mm-hmm.
They are. They can be hotter than 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But Ben, you turned us on to this fact. This is fascinating. They're because of the actual coal. And by the way, so firewalking is kind of a misnomer. It would be more accurately described as coal walking, Ben, as you pointed out to us. And the carbon structure of coal is really bad at conducting heat. So if you kind of zip along, hot-footedly, there's a little bit of a lag in how quickly it conducts heat from the coal to your actual bare feet.
And that's why you don't see a bunch of people getting together to have either a social rite of passage or a corporate team building exercise by walking on a 10-foot row of burning metal sheet pans.
Oh,
you don't do it. There's a reason. There's a science to this. Yeah, coal is just a terrible, terrible conductor of heat. Water also has a high thermal capacity, so you don't see the prep work. Before you see that amazing walk, there are hours of people very carefully organizing, igniting the coal, and then letting it burn down while they smooth it out. They let the wood burn so that the embers don't retain water, and they use specific types of wood. So hardwood embers like cherry and maple might glow red-orange, look hot, but they don't burn as hot as other types of wood like olive wood. And the Firewalk pros know this, the Tony Robbins of the world and so on.
that's right. And another major factor here is essentially what I do with my grill, what maybe you do with your grill when you're cooking. If you set the coals up, if you cook with coals, but you set coals up kind of in a pile, you set it on fire, then once the fire's going...
like a pyramid, right? Like almost, yeah.
Once fire's going, you spread that baby out. So you've got essentially a flat layer of coals across the entirety of that surface. The same thing is happening here. The coals are then spread out specifically so that you're not going to, when you place your foot on top of it, you're not going to go into coals, right? You're not going to surround your foot with a step with coals. You're going to step across one single layer, or as close to one single layer as possible.
Mm-hmm. You might also dip your feet in some water. That's because when liquid meets intense heat, it forms an insulating, albeit temporary, layer of steam. This is something called the Leidenfrost effect.
I'm sorry. What, sir? What was that?
Oh yeah, it's. I meant to say the Leidenfrost effect.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I got it.
It's the reason why you can lick the tip of your fingers and then snuff out a candle without hurting yourself. And yes, we are pronouncing that correctly. It does have to be screamed.
It's in all caps anywhere that it's printed.
Right. So with all this, like what you were saying earlier, Noel, we do see a pace mattering, because if you have prepared this way, your wood's right, your surface is flat, there's not actual flame being emitted, and you just walk at a brisk pace, you know what I mean? You walk like it's kind of cold outside and you're in a hurry, then you are going to receive a relatively small amount of harmless heat with each step. But that changes very quickly if you saunter too much or you meander.
Don't do that.
It also changes. Yeah, it also changes if you run. It gets worse on either side of the spectrum.
Just slow and steady. That's what the tortoise was talking about, or the turtle, or whatever other slow animal in that parable you want to call it.
You don't want to run. So it really is all about just like a nice, even saunter.
Continue across.